studios in New York City. This is Charlie Rose.
We begin this evening from Paris with Bernard-Henri Lévy. The philosopher and author has said that France faces its Churchillian moment following the Charlie Hebdo attacks. He warned that the country should not follow the United States' footsteps after 9/11. Today, a group claiming to back the Islamic State hacked U.S. Central Command's Twitter and YouTube accounts. One message said, "American soldiers, we're coming, watch your back." It happened as President Obama was giving a speech on cybersecurity. There are many things to talk about, and I begin with this question for Bernard-Henri Lévy. After all of your experience in thinking about anti-Semitism, in thinking about the radical extremist Islamic threat, the book that you wrote about Daniel Pearl, tell me what France and Paris have gone through and the implications as you see them.
France has clearly been under attack. Attack on cartoonists, great journalists, heroes of freedom of press on one side, and attack on Jews on the other side. There is a double attack which France had to face last week. This is a new situation, and the world felt it because, as you know, 43 chiefs of state came to Paris as a sort of General Assembly of United Nations, walking in the streets in Paris in solidarity with Parisian people. So the situation is very hot here and very hard. I don't think it can be compared to September 11. It is something else, but really heavy on press and on Jews.
So tell me what it is. What do you think the consequences are for France, for the West, for the challenge of radical extremism?
The general situation is that it is a global attack, a global war launched by these people of Daesh and of Al-Qaeda, which is at the end of the day the same. And they really launched a global attack under our values, under the West in general, and under democracy. But the new event, the real event of yesterday, is that democracy is back, France is back, Europe is back, and they are backed by America. When John Kerry expressed these words of solidarity in French language, when he said, "I am Charlie" in French, this was for me and for a lot of French people a real great moment. The last time in history that this happened was President Roosevelt, November 8th of 1942, during the war, delivering a speech on Free France Radio in London. So John Kerry today, President Roosevelt in 92, in the two situations, American president or state secretary expressing solidarity to France in French. This is a great proof of brotherhood, alliance, solidarity, and also maybe a sign that what we are facing today is really serious.
Did the French take notice of the fact that no high American official was present there with the Chancellor of Germany and the Prime Minister of Israel and the Prime Minister of Britain and so many other heads of state? Did it concern them that America was not represented in the same manner?
It was represented by Mr. Holder, who is a representative at the end of the day. What is true is that till the last minute, there was a great expectation and rumors that Barack Obama could be there. And there was a slight disappointment. But wait a minute, Charlie. Barack Obama went to our embassy in Washington. John Kerry again said, "Je suis Charlie," in his non-native French language. So the friendship is really molded in the real good iron of brotherhood. There is no doubt on that, and I think that there is no serious French women or man today who doubts that America is with us, as we were with America on September 11. September 11, there was a Mr. Colombani of Le Monde saying we all are Americans. I have the feeling that you are very numerous today in New York City to think and say, as John Kerry, we all are French. No. It is a sort of sad and tragic reciprocity, but it is a reciprocity.
They are saying we're all our Charlie.
And everybody is saying, yes, all over the world, I am Charlie, like Charlie Chaplin, like Charlie Rose, like many Charlie. This motto has become such a widespread word all over the planet. This means also something, and it means what? It means that, my opinion, for the first time, the free world took the real dimension of what is happening. Since years and decades, we said that terrorism is not a real threat. We say that terrorism was the fruit of misery and of bad social conditions. We said that the attack of terrorism was not a real war. Today, for the first time, I think that there is a consensus, there is an agreement all over the world to say and to stand that it is a real threat which is threatening civilization as itself. This is what means this spreading of I am Charlie all over the world. In Lebanon, in South Africa, in Burundi, there is a group who said Je suis Charlie. But it is the proof of this, that for the first time, terrorism is taken as it is, which is a new fascism, which is the new form of Nazism in the 21st century.
What did you mean when you said the Churchillian moment of France's Fifth Republic?
I meant that we need in France a leadership who says two things, or even three. Number one, it will be a long and difficult battle. Number two, we have to keep our cold blood. And number three, we have to avoid some possible mistakes, which, by the way, were committed by our American friends under George W. Bush at the moment of Patriot Act and exceptional measures and so on. So Churchillian moment, I meant real battle, cold blood, and preventing the anti-liberty laws. This is what is achieved now by Hollande and Valls.
Will there be a great debate in France about whether there was enough intelligence and whether this could have been prevented if there were more and better surveillance measures?
I don't think so. There is a general feeling that a lot was avoided, that many terrorist attacks before this one were possible and were eradicated at the very root. There is this general feeling. No, today, what was really great in the streets of Paris yesterday, you, Charlie, you showed the images on your program. What was great was to see these people standing very proudly, with pride, with honesty also and decency, all together, right and left, all origin, all creeds. There was no red France and blue France. There was only United States of France gathered during these hours. This sort of moment happened very rarely, very seldom in the history of a great nation. The last time that there were 2 million people in Paris was the funeral of Victor Hugo at the end of the 19th century. Never after that. Funeral of Victor Hugo and yesterday. So there is really a union, a unity, provisional of course, around the victims, around the hidden Jews, the hidden journalists, and the government in order to face the jihadist attack, which is more and more generally considered in France as being this fascism, which I call it since years and years. You know, you remember when I was on your table, I miss it by the way now, about Daniel Pearl.
You've also suggested that Muslims have to denounce extremists, that they have to step forward and loudly and vocally denounce. Do you expect that to take place? Do you have a sense that that not only have the people of France of all religious beliefs understood the moment, but that Muslims around the world have to and have heard the message that they must cast out those who use the Prophet Muhammad as a rallying cry for some evil deed they want to do?
Of course. First thing, we cannot say, as we said for so long, that jihadism has nothing to do with Islam. I know that people say that, but it is not true. Jihadism has something to do with Islam. There is a jihadist interpretation of Islam, number one. Number two, this interpretation has to be battled, has to be fought by others. It has to be proved that it is not the only one, that it is a very minority interpretation of Islam. Who can do that? I will not do it. François Hollande will not do it. The only who can say that there is a battle inside Islam between jihadist Islam and enlightened Islam are Muslims themselves. That's why the French Muslims, who are as French as I am, they have today a real historical task, which is to say, which is to open the wound, which is to open the debate, and which is to fight against the jihadist interpretation of Islam. The only real serious clash of civilization is the clash inside Islam, between moderates and jihadists. And this clash, this battle, has to be led by Muslims themselves. They began to do it these days. And the day of yesterday, this huge monster demonstration was the occasion, the rendezvous for a lot of French people of Muslim creed to say for the first time really and loudly, not in our name, not in my name. This to preach murder under the name of God is to transform God into a murderer by procuration. A lot of French Muslims said that yesterday, and this also is a date in French modern and contemporary history.
A couple of political points in France. How do the French people perceive François Hollande's handling of this tragedy?
Well, they perceive it well, and this is a general feeling which is expressed everywhere, in the streets, on the TVs, on the internet. Even the adversaries of François Hollande must admit and must confess that he handles this situation in a good way, and maybe in a great way, with, again, cold blood, feeling and will of national unity, not pushing his own agenda, smart toward his previous president, Nicolas Sarkozy, smart and elegant. There is a general feeling that François Hollande behaves in a brave way. And same for Manuel Valls. The way Manuel Valls went to this Jewish little kasher market the very night when the murder happened was also a very good sign. And he had this great sentence, because there is a lot of Jews today in France who think about leaving and who think that Israel might be a safer place than France for them. And Manuel Valls, Prime Minister of France, said, France without the Jews would no longer be France. France without Jews is not France. This is what he said, and this again is a real good point, not considering political belongings and politician quarrels.
And what about the far right? What about Le Pen? And what about the spirit of nationalism? And what about those who argue in an anti-immigrant message?
Again, as it happens often, the experts proved to be wrong. Everybody believed that Le Pen, extreme right, would take advantage of the situation. It was a general belief that Le Pen would say, you see, I said it before, and that she would take benefit out of it. It proves wrong. Le Pen is, for the moment, completely out of the game. She made a whole mess, completely stupid, saying that she wanted to be invited to the demonstration as if it were a party. Mrs. Le Pen probably mixing a neo-Nazi ball in Vienna when she was a few years ago, and where she needs a Bristol, she needs a card, and the demonstration in Paris where there is no Bristol, you go with your heart and with your feet. She said, I was not invited, and as I am not invited, I will not go. And she went in a city of far from Paris, Beaucaire, where she feels at home, to make her own sad and small défilé. In a way, she put herself out of the game. And what was also miraculous yesterday was to see this crowd, which had nothing to do with these xenophobic, hyper-nationalistic feelings, which are, it is true, which were very present in the debate in the last weeks, but they were whipped off yesterday in the streets of Paris. She will come back, of course, but when her father, who is still the president of honor of the party, made again a big mistake. He said, I'm not Charlie. I am not Charlie. Okay, you are not Charlie, so go to Beaucaire, this little city in the province of France. They are out of the game, quite unexpectedly, but they are.
So what do you think the agenda is for France tonight?
The agenda for France now is, number one, to protect the Jews who are clearly targeted. It is sad to arrive to this point, but it is the situation today in Paris, in France. The synagogues, the Jewish schools are guarded by policemen or soldiers. It is sad, but it is unfortunately necessary. Number two, they have, and they are doing it, they have to dismantle all these networks of terrorists and jihadists consisting in women and men who went to Syria and who came back with the program, with the agenda of killing Jews, killing policemen, and killing journalists. They have to dismantle all that, and they have to reassure the self-esteem of France, which has already begun with the beautiful and great crowd of yesterday Sunday.
How did they dismantle the networks of terror?
There is, you know that, in all democracy it is the same problem, which is to fight enemies of democracy with democratic means and not fall in the trap of using terrorist means in order to fight terrorists. This is one thing, but this being considered, there is a lot, I cannot say more, but there is a lot of intelligence at work. There is a real now watching of the internet. A lot of these things, terrorist network and so on, went through the deep web. There is now a new culture in all the Western democracy which allows and permits to dig in this deep web. So there is a lot of ways. The law exist. I don't think we need more laws than the laws which already exist, and we'll see. Anyway, the zero risk does not exist. The most powerful country in the world with great agencies like America could not prevent September 11, which is the biggest terrorist attack ever seen. So maybe France will not foresee and will not prevent a new terrorist attack. This is possible, but what I can tell you is that the life of the jihadists in France will become more and more difficult in the coming weeks.
And when does the next issue of Charlie Hebdo come out?
The next issue comes out tomorrow, and this is the sad and beautiful paradox of the situation. This little magazine, very tiny, nearly confidential, which was that was begging for help in the last weeks because his circulation was going dramatically down. They will make, day after tomorrow, a new issue which will be printed 3 million of copies in many languages. I think that in the sky, in the paradise, between paradise and a little lower, where they are, Cabu, Wolinski and Charb must probably laugh and laugh and laugh at a lot about this situation. 3 million copies. All these, yesterday in Paris, when you saw the man of Erdogan, the man of Jordania saying, I am Charlie, they never ever knew that Charlie Hebdo existed. But this is a witz, as Sigmund Freud said, a witz, a sort of trick of history. And up in the sky, they must laugh a lot about this trick of history, historical tragedy, historical situation, and this piece of humor, which is well in the manner of Charlie Hebdo.
Bernard, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, my dear Charlie. Thank you.
We'll be right back with Jeffrey Goldberg. Stay with us.